Dear leaders of technology, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Madam Secretary, let me first of all thank you. You have no idea how we are so happy to host you this morning. And again, at a very short notice, I know as up to yesterday morning, the PS was to join us, but other exigencies. But even then, just being able to come in. But we're also even excited because the space you hold of e-government and the digital economy is actually the reason why we are here. We are so privileged to host, especially the technology leaders here, Madam Secretary, because, as I will mention shortly, these are very important stakeholders for us in records management. Now, records management is the profession responsible for all those, and you know what records is. So even from the technology side, when you are talking of the EDMS, the document management system, the standards, we are the people who are trained in that area. Madam Secretary, we have, I want to publicly thank the leaders in this room for even accepting to attend this session. We have in excess of 30 organizations represented here from public and private sectors, but all who are technology leaders. But let me tell you quickly, and of course we do have also our partners who've worked with the lights is in the room. I know you'll hear from them. We have AGS somewhere, I think. Yeah, let me just quickly just tell you very briefly about records management. And I mean, we all know, just to build context so that we are able to anchor the conversation effectively, we all know what records means to organization. I think in this era of technology, when everything is digital, people want to access work with the hybrid, records is coming up a very key area. In fact, we say, if you are to look at it as an engine, you can argue that technology people give us the engine, record is the fuel that flows through, through that engine, and we need that collaboration for them to be able to, run. And these are the benefits, of course, you'll see. But from a Karma perspective, the three things we are focusing on are: one, the talent area, just building the right skills, and you'll see why it become an issue as we go on, especially now implementing the digital solutions. We are talking about advocacy. How do we be able to spread the message around effective management of records and information, whether it's for compliance, whether it's for legal, whether it's for operational efficiency. And part of the challenge we've had over the years is not just a Kenyan issue. It's a global issue. Sometimes you find even the people tasked with managing records are not well equipped from a skill level, And you can see that sometimes you walk around the offices and you find heaps of files. That tells you. So how do we even ensure that organizations invest appropriately? So advocacy is a key thing. We are working with a number of agencies, the likes of ESCC, the likes of CAJ, who are custodians of access to information, and a few others, just to drive these county governments. And then we're also focusing on technology transfer. And this is a big one, because if you want to think about how do we ensure that organizations get the right EDRMSs, for instance, technology transfer is important. We know of cases where people have been left with a school management system in the name of an EDRMS. I will have those examples in this country, not elsewhere. So once the vendors leave, you realize, and that's so. How do we bring in technology? And the thing is, there's a lot of these technologies around the world. Karma today, we are privileged. We are the most vibrant professional association for records in Africa, and we're involved in a lot of things globally as well. So there are all these technologies around the world that we're figuring out how do we bring them. We don't have to reinvent the wheel, but just bring them effectively to drive impact across our organization. So those are the three areas we are focusing on, and all of them really relate to our collaboration, even as we seek better collaboration technology. Some of the things we do are here, capacity building, but let me just speak out to the talent development program. Madam Secretary, is a program we came up from last year. It was launched by the CS for ICT then. It is about identifying emerging talent, young talent, and training them and developing them in digital record keeping, specifically, because that's an area we are struggling even as records management profession. And I'll show you why that's important if you look at the terrain of records management. So we have today 9 mentees. Right? Vitalis is running that program. We are partnering with the professional association, let me say our sister association from Australia. So later this year, those mentees will be traveling to Australia as part of the exchange program and exposure to those countries. For those of you who may know, Australia is the leading country in matters records management. As a matter of fact, all the international standards we have today in records management, and there are 24 of them which are published, have really been modeled from the Australian standards. The other program we are launching this year is the She Leads Tech program. You know the issue of women in technology, Madam Secretary, but we are glad that in this country e-government is led by a lady. So this year we are launching a program specifically to develop women who are in records management as leaders, technology leaders in that space. And that will be launched on the 4th of November at the official opening of our conference in Mombasa. There are many other things we do, as you can see, as a profession. The awards are about advocacy. You know, the Professor Mkoya Prize, Professor Mkoya was our patron, our founding patron, the late. That prize is designed to acknowledge training institutions with the most transformative programs in records management, because that has been one of the major challenges we deal with in the country, and a few others. The hackathon targets university students specifically. These are some of the tools we've developed. I guess the MC has announced the digitization guidelines we rolled out last year. You can access them from your table talkers, and this is important because it will sort of provide just a simple path. I know the leaders in this room are the ones charged with the records digitization in organization. And we thought, why not provide some guidelines? Because we see a lot of failure rates in these programs. Yeah. Sometimes you bring a vendor, he wants to scan every other paper they come across, isn't it? Does it have a record value? We don't know. But so long as it's a paper, and you said I'll pay you two bob or 1 bob per paper, then the more paper they scan, the better. It just makes logical sense to them. We have a competence framework as well as a professional conduct that all our members subscribe to. So what we know, and I think this is the numbers I just wanted to share, just for us to appreciate why the collaboration is important. We do lots of research around the area of records and information management, and these are the things we pick in terms of even why the digitization. For instance, you see the challenges, how it affects productivity. You see the issues around how paper gets wasted, you know. And this last one, over 7.5% of all records get lost. Yeah. And that can be serious, especially if you think from a litigation process. When you don't have the right, evidence. Sometimes you hear that lack of evidence and all that. And that can, and the loss can be different, can be intentional, can be natural disasters, can man-made disasters, but really that's the outlook. And that tells you why the issue of digitization is important. Yeah, because paper is no longer sustainable. And I see this practice when we meet people in organization. We still have a practice where people are printing emails. You get an email, you print and file, isn't it? And I ask, for what purpose? Because it doesn't serve any purpose in law. And then the lawyers are here, if you got an email original and you print it, if you went to court and they ask you for original, the original can only be the email, isn't it? It can't be the paper. And that's what the Evidence Act says. But we still have a lot of printing of documents that are received originally as digital. So original document is not paper document. And that's some of the challenges you'll have to deal with and that's why you wonder why you're buying a system and there's still a lot of paper. Because people are still printing the papers and filing for for comfort. We also have around efficiency. Think about digitization. I think I would, 8 out of 10 workers, already recreate documents that exist, especially because you can't find them. So the energy of looking for the document, you decide, let me just print another one and take, if it needs signatures, I can take around they sign. It's faster than going to look for the paper in the registries, especially those of us who have centralized registries. 45 of companies, it takes over a week to get a contract signed, again because of the paper element. Maybe if we digitized, this can be faster. And so this conversation is, how do we get the digitization even more effective? And since again it sits with the audience in the room. On strategy, 70% organization lack a strategic plan. Now, records management has very serious legal, compliance, even regulatory implications. I know even as a country we don't have I know, Doc, you're working on a national records management policy, isn't it? I think in Africa it's only South Africa which has something close to that, through their national act. The rest don't have. Many of organizations don't have strong records management policies. Even after the law, for instance, the Access to Information Act, when it was enacted, it required that all organizations digitize their records in 3 years. That hasn't happened. And we don't have even tools or policies to operationalize that. And then, of course, few then have minimal documents. So it's kind of left to individuals. And that's why you'll see cases where today someone goes on leave, they have locked the files in their cabinets. So we can't move because the person who has their file, who was given the file, amefungia na ameenda, these problems can be solved through digitization. But what we are talking about this morning is how do we get that digitization effectively? And we do know there have been a number of false starts. As you can see, EDRMS project, 75, it takes about 4 years, minimum 4 years, for EDRMS project to hit about adoption rate of 75% and above. Now, as technology leaders, this pace at which technology is evolving, isn't it? 3 years is a very long period for technology, 4 years. So if you procure these good EDRMSs and the adoption hasn't happened in 3 years, by the time you're getting to 75, probably the technology is obsolete. You have to upgrade and so forth and so on. So again, there are change management issues. And we have seen these challenges even at a country level. There's a country we worked with here in the region where they went and procured a very costly EDRMSs. At the point of implementation, people are using it to keep in other things, wedding photos, their own private things. So again, it was a whole other exercise to start cleaning this thing up for the entire government and put in infrastructure, policies and procedures to guide that. So that just speaks to the issue around how lack of training and change management is a big issue, yes. And then, so lastly, in terms of the terrain, just for us to understand why, again, that collaboration between technology and us is important. Records management of all the information, those who studied information sciences, records management of all the 4 or 5 areas of information sciences, library, media and all that, have the highest ISO standards, of course, next to technology. And that tells you why does it attract a lot of standardization. It speaks to the weight of the practice. 24 of them are published. 4 are currently undergoing publication. This is done by the ISO Standing Committee 11 of the Technical Committee 46. And then you'll see the legal imperatives in Kenya. I talked about the ICT, the Kenya Information Communication Act. That is what brought in admissibility of electronic records. It wasn't there initially. The Access to Information Act, the one that required we digitize after so many years. Evidence Act. Evidence Act is interesting because one of the provision it provides is that for a digital record to meet the threshold for evidence, you must demonstrate the manner in which the reliability of that record was maintained. Reliability. And that's how people lose court cases, because you will have things like, I had this image stored on a phone, the person downloaded it on a flash disk, and so you'll have to be asked, can you confirm that this movement did not interfere with the originality? So that again speaks to when we are designing the systems, bringing in the EDRMS, how do we factor in that? We know of Data Protection Act, and Rosemary is in the room. Rosemary is a leader in that data protection space. I'm sure she will share some insights. And many others, public archives, which requires public documents to be governed a particular way. So this is just again for us to appreciate, how the terrain looks like, and then what are the things we need to put in place. And importantly, therefore, how do we build collaboration between records managers and technology leaders? As you're getting that EDRMS, how does it pick to the various standards? And I know even here, the ICT Authority has developed three standards for electronic records management already that we need to tap into. The evolution of technology over the years, we started with records management systems, which were ideally electronic way of managing paper records. Those were like the file tracking things. And then we went to imaging. When the scanning came up, you scan, you store in a hard drive. The old scanning used to have all these hard drives. We went to electronic records management, when now we are thinking, can we bring some level of workflow? EDMS came up. Content management systems are here for collaboration and web content. We moved to the EDRMS, which now combines document and records management, because not all documents are records. Not all documents are records. There are qualities that make a record, and therefore, what then guides how does your EDRMS then capture that fixicity? And that's why we say, I know in technology sometimes we use the word archiving to refer to filing, isn't it? Yes. But in records, an archive is a document of enduring value selected for permanent storage. It's a document that should never be destroyed. And it's an average about only 5% of records in organizations that qualify to be archival records. So when a records person is looking at EDRMS, would want to know how you are applying the retention, that at some point you have to offload what needs to be destroyed after. And that's what makes records complex. If you think records, personnel records, for instance, 20 years since after the person leaves, that may be different from finance, where the finance order will tell you 7 years after audit. So there are those nuances that bring, and then now today we talk about the omnichannel that bring various stacks of technology that need to combine. Now these are the things that make us say the collaboration is important to build the skills and just effectiveness on how then we implement this. This is just a picture of the standards I spoke about. I don't need to show you this. I've spoke about what's holding us back and why we need to collaborate, because this is really getting digitization right is a collaboration between technology and the records people. I've talked about the skills, capabilities, even understanding what are EDRMSs, about getting the right technology, and issues around policies, people, what we talk about garbage in, garbage out. You don't want to digitize a faulty manual record system. In fact, we tell people, don't start, a lot of organizations, what we see even here in the country, Madam Secretary, they start with scanning first. Then now they will go to the system. Then now they figure out these things we scanned, how do we bring in? Records people will tell you, you start, clean out the records first. You don't have to scan everything. There are things you can actually live with for 3-4 years manually, because we are a low-resourced country. Then you dispose as per policy. Then get in your system. Now start transitioning in, maybe, current moving forward. The legacy records, you can start leaving them out, maybe destroying, but there are laws that guide that. So even just the change management and adoption process, those are some of the insights we want to talk about, and so forth and so on. So really, that's it from us. Madam Secretary, again, to thank you so much. The purpose of us was just then to see collaboration, partnership going forward. How do we work together? How do we ensure that the false starts that we have seen around records digitization don't happen? And we feel that that rests on our shoulders are both technology and records management professions.